Welcome to this week's podcast. I'm Michelle Pascoe, and thank you so much for joining me. Each week, I either interview an amazing guest, or perhaps I'm sharing my own insights over the past 3 decades in this amazing industry, as well as being in business. This podcast is for those in the hospitality industry, but it's also so much more than that. It's for someone just like you. Perhaps you're an individual building a business, or you're just starting out building a team, or you have many people that you lead and manage. If that is so, and you are wanting to create an amazing experience for your patrons, your clients, your members, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome, everyone, to today's podcast. I have got a returnee, wonderful guest to have a conversation with today, and I know you're going to really enjoy it. It's about something different to what she spoke about last time, so don't think, oh no, is this a repeat? Because it's certainly not. Christie is the Chief People and Culture Officer for the Aristocrat Group and co-chair of the International Subcommittee for Global Gaming Women. Having served for several years as the chair of Women in Gaming and Hospitality Australasia, Christie played a pivotal role in bringing the GGW brand to Australia and New Zealand, helping to promote and advance the careers of women across the industry. Christie is also the Deputy Chairperson of the Board of Central New South Wales Business HQ, whose aim is to enable regional communities to thrive through the support and promotion of small businesses. Having joined Biz HQ as the only female board member at the time, she is now one of 3, and she also led the most recent appointment of a female CEO for the first time in the company's 30-plus year history. Most recently, Christie also became the first female board member of Windsor Income Protection, specialising in group insurance. They create all-encompassing insurance solutions complemented by a specialist claims management team, allowing them to be the partner of choice for their clients. Christie is passionate about using these platforms and her voice to support others in making their best contribution, free from roadblocks and red tape. And today, Chris and I are going to be having a wonderful conversation about global gaming women. So welcome, Christie. It's so lovely to see you.
Thank you, Michelle. Sorry, I gave you a bit of a mouthful of an introduction there, but thank you very much. I appreciate you having me back, and I hope I don't bore your listeners with any repeat stories.
No, this is going to be fantastic because the last time we chatted about women in leadership in the hospitality industry, particularly in your role there at Aristocrat as PNC, but this time we're going to be talking about the global gaming women, because it is a massive industry. We had a conversation at the AG in August this year where we launched it with we had a launch, so to speak, within the AGE of the breakfast, and we had so many people there. It was so wonderful to see so many women in the industry attending, and then followed on a whole day just about women in the industry. I've joined the program over in America a number of years ago when I was speaking at G2E in 2019, and I know just attending a breakfast there and having the lean-in circles was phenomenal. So I know my listeners are probably thinking, well, how can we get into this and what is it about? So firstly, let's just give our listeners a little bit of overview about what you do in your current role at Aristocrat and how you became part of the gaming industry initially.
Thanks, Michelle. So look, my primary role is as you said, Chief People and Culture Officer at Aristocrat. I mean, how to describe it? I get asked this question often. In a sentence, it's sort of, all things people and culture for an organization of, circa 9,000 people across 20 countries. I'd love to tell you what that looks like on a day-to-day basis, but I have to tell you there are no 2 days that are ever the same. Working across 20 countries is certainly keeps you on your toes and keeps the day looking different, because people challenges in one part of the world are incredibly different in other parts of the world. Over the last couple of years, I've had some very unique experiences at Aristocrat that I would never, when I thought I wanted to be the Chief People and Culture Officer, thought I would encounter. Things like Aristocrat had 1,000 people in the Ukraine and 500 people in Russia the day that Russia commenced the war with Ukraine.
Wow.
And, overnight, what a regular day looked like for me was flipped on its head and looked completely different.
Mm,
We have several hundred people in Israel right now. And so,
mm.
again, what a day looks like at the moment is, vastly different to what it looks like under different sets of circumstances. But, essentially anything that relates to how we can ensure that our people can come to work, bring their best self to work, their whole self to work,
Mm.
and really be able to deliver to get what they want out of their career, but also deliver to make Aristocrat, fantastic company, which I may be biased, but which I think we are today. In terms of the gaming industry, I think you said, how did I come to join the industry?
Yes.
So it's been almost 14 years now. I was working in a role, I have to say, in legal publishing. And
Mm.
to say that it wasn't exciting would be an understatement. And I worked with some great people, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But I found myself unable to get excited about, what we actually did,
Mm.
and the products we developed and the services we provided. And so I was, looking for other roles, and I was having some conversations actually with a pharmaceutical company because I previously had experience in pharmaceuticals. And
Mm.
then just sort of out of the blue, got a phone call from the recruiter at Aristocrat, and I was like, this sounds really interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't particularly play the pokies or the slots, depending on what part of the world you're watching or listening to this podcast from. I didn't necessarily wasn't necessarily a player, but I'd grown up around the social aspect of pubs and clubs and
Mm.
casinos, and I just thought it seemed really interesting, a lot more interesting than pharma and legal publishing. So I thought, why not? And somehow 14 years later, I can't really imagine sort of being anywhere else.
Yes, yeah. And what a wonderful way to explain to our listeners how you just came into this role knowing a little bit about it, only from that social aspect, but then to get really entrenched in it and to grow that role has been absolutely amazing. And as you mentioned there, just a few of those challenges with Ukraine and Russia and Israel, but I'm sure there's challenges no matter what country we're in. It's about, how do you handle those? So how do you prepare? You've obviously got a team as well, Christie. So how do you prepare them for those challenges?
Yeah, so I do. I have a fabulous team of people all around the world, and I think about we're not hiring, having skills, or whether it be educational qualifications in people and culture, or past experience with talent management or performance
Mm,
management. I mean, they're all sort of like the price of admission. That's not really what's going to differentiate people to be able to come into this industry,
yes.
and kind of really make a difference. So I'm far more interested in things like agility and resilience, and love someone who's kind of loves a good complex problem, and
Mm.
is able to work in ambiguity. Ambiguity becomes not needing everything to be kind of black and white, and so really sort of trying to instill those things in the team, whether that be through recruitment or through development,
Mm.
because I think ultimately they are the things. At the end of the day, we're talking about people,
Yes.
and it doesn't matter whether it's a performance management process or something else. We're talking about people, and so I think those skills will serve anybody well. And then in particular in this industry, I mean, let's not underestimate how much resilience is required to navigate some of the challenges of this industry. Agility, the industry is changing every day, regardless of what part of the industry you're within. So for me, it's focusing on those types of skills to
Yes.
enable people to sort of navigate the challenges that are inevitably going to emerge in any organization, but particularly in large kind of global
Mm.
complex organizations like Aristocrat.
Yes. Yeah. Particularly with that global aspect, Christy, where, we're unaware of what those, we can only be guided by what we see on the television and social media about what is happening overseas. And to be there, in another part of the world trying to help those people, it would be challenging, but I would also say it would be very rewarding as well.
Yeah, it becomes really important to make sure, you can't be the smartest person in the room,
Mm.
because sitting here in Australia, there's just no way I can be the expert on the needs of our people in the
Yes.
Ukraine, or how best to shut down our operations in Russia, which we were required to do, and and so you need to rely on experts both within your team
Mm.
and externally to be able to give you that information, because anything that we read, it's always no matter how wide you read, ultimately it's always filtered through some sort of funnel, and without being on the ground, you really can't truly understand. So making sure you feel comfortable is I don't need to be the most knowledgeable in this space, but I
Mm.
need to have access to the most knowledgeable people, and
Yes.
and get comfortable knowing that I might not have all the answers, and that's
Mm.
okay. And that's sometimes something we don't like to say out loud, especially as women, I think, because there's already something around, let's not talk about imposter syndrome. That'll be a whole
Yes.
different podcast, but there's already something about that. And so then saying out loud, actually, I don't know, let me bring the experts in, when
Mm.
all eyes are looking at you saying, Christie, what should we do on this particular topic? So yeah,
Mm.
really, really getting comfortable with leveraging other people for the skills that they have, noting that they're
Yes.
complementary to yours, not competitive to
Mm.
yours.
I think that's the perfect, that when that they complement each other, they're not competitive. And too often we see mistakes happen where we just don't reach out to somebody else or ask somebody. Sure, if it's something they've studied or they've done a research or that's their expertise, then I don't think there's any harm in asking. And really, the other people around the table, if they think that's a sign of weakness, well, I think that's their issue, isn't it? It's certainly not you, because you're better off having the right answer than going ahead with the wrong answer. And then, as we saw, there's a famous chef who's just written a book that he launched in Australia and then didn't even bother to connect. Well, his team or whoever it was somewhere down the line didn't have a conversation with people here in Australia, with our Indigenous people, and so has had to pull it from the shelf. And once again, was it well, we just know and we didn't find out. So yeah, we have to share that information, don't we?
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's crazy. So now let's look at this GGW, because as I said before we came online, it was back in August. We had this launch. We're having a conversation about it, and then I thought, right, let's get Christie in to have a conversation and find out exactly what is GGW and who can join and why would they and what are the benefits of joining.
Okay, lots in that one. Let me unpack. So GGW, Global Gaming Women. I mean, essentially, they're dedicated to empowering and advancing women within the gaming industry. In sort of in a simple sentence, they were launched in the US in 2011. They became a registered charity in 2016, and essentially, they were born out of the recognition that women are underrepresented from an employment perspective in our industry, in particular in leadership positions. So, what was always been interesting for me when I first joined the industry is they were called Global Gaming Women, but they really only ever had a presence in the US.
Yes.
And in other parts of the world, there were similar organizations, one of which, I was a part of, being Women in Gaming and Hospitality. And I thought, you know what, this kind of is a little bit silly, because we're all essentially trying to achieve the same thing.
Yes.
Surely if we come together and share our kind of collective mindsets, we'd get some better outcomes. So that's how Global Gaming Women is in the process of truly putting the first G, the big G, and truly becoming global with the launch of this international subcommittee. And we've got some wonderful, wonderful women based in Australia and New Zealand, and also over in Europe, who are really leading the charge to help, I guess, establish our brand and our presence. So that's a little bit about who GGW is, and I guess where they came from. If you think about that purpose as empowering and advancing women, so very much what they focus on and the types of activities that we're focusing on in Australia and New Zealand, is things like formal learning programs. So how do we give women some of the skills they need to be more confident to put their hand up for that promotion that they might otherwise,
Yes.
not feel compelled to do? Creating networking opportunities, to just develop comfort for people in networking in a place that is a very safe space, but also you just never know who you're going to meet in one of those networking opportunities, and how in 12 months time or 24 months time or even 5 years time, you might be taken back to that conversation and feel like you've come full circle. You touched at the beginning about things like lean in circles.
Yes.
So, lean in circles are really just a sort of formal opportunity to bring groups of women together in similar locations, just to make logistics a little manageable, but to come together to talk about some of the challenges. They could be challenges they have personally, how they manage work-life balance, could be professional challenges. I'm in marketing at one venue and you're in marketing in another, and this is something we find difficult. What's your experience? And so all of those types of activities are really about a kind of enabling women to take control of their own career, giving them access to opportunity to build skills, build networks, so that they can advance their career, sole purpose, within the gaming, within the gaming industry. So that's what people can expect to see. Week after next, I'm heading over to Auckland for a launch event in Auckland. I'm super excited about it. It'll be our second launch event in New Zealand. I'm super excited about that. Had some great events here in Sydney. We have got some formal development programs happening early in the new calendar year. We've actually got a couple of trainers coming out from Global Gaming Women in the US to present a number of courses to women out here. So there's lots of exciting things on the agenda, and it's really about building up a broad membership base, because the more people we get, the more services we can ultimately offer.
That's fantastic. And it's just so wonderful to see that you're bringing that life back into it here in Australia. And as you said, putting the oomph into that big G, because it really is that global. So, you've talked about, these lean in circles, that's this connection, it's that opportunity for those that are either in the industry for quite a while or those that are just beginning, how they can connect and communicate. And we know, Christie, that is so important for every generation, but particularly for Gen Z, where they've got very much that group mindset cohort, so they're looking for those group of people who perhaps may, many of the friendship groups may not be in our industry, so it's hard to talk about and have those conversations. So as I said, we talk about this connection. Mentorship often plays a crucial role in leadership development. Could you share a mentorship experience that had a significant impact on your leadership journey, either as a mentor or mentee? And how can we encourage more mentorship within, and those opportunities within our amazing industry?
Say one on both sides if I can, and at the end of the day, you've got editing control here, Michelle, so if you need to cut me short, you can cut me short. But one of the things I do want to share is I have a mentor today. So as the Chief People and Culture Officer responsible for 9,000 people in a very senior role in a large global organization, I have a mentor, and that relationship is one of the most important relationships I have in my career. The hour or so that I spend on a regular basis, as well as the ad hoc calls with my mentor, really do just make all the difference to me. Someone when you're a little bit unsure of something and you just want a sounding board, or when you're actually pretty confident about something but you want someone else to say, hey, that's a great idea, just again giving you that little sort of positive boost to keep going forward. When you want to unpick something incredibly kind of complex, or you're looking at two completely different sides but of the same coin of a challenge, and I take all of those things to my mentor, and I never walk away from one of those sessions feeling anything but completely energized. And I share that only because I think sometimes people think like mentoring is what you get early in your career, and then you're expected to just know it all. And I mean, that just isn't possible, Michelle. Like I often say to my mentor, like, I stopped wearing high heels many, many years ago, but I feel like these days I wear clown shoes, because the shoes are just way too big. And each time I grow and develop, the shoes get bigger. And, I encounter new challenges that I've never encountered before. And so the learning never stops. And so whether it be a mentor, a coach, or some other version, no matter where you are, no matter what level you are in your career, I'd highly encourage that. In terms of being a mentor, very quick story. I received an email, and I mean, I get a lot of unsolicited emails, as you can imagine. I'm sure we all do. I received an email from a young man who was in his final year of studying HR at uni, and he said, "Look, you don't know me, and I don't know you, but I'm reaching out to the heads of HR of the top 20 Australian publicly listed companies. Would you spare 30 minutes just to have a conversation with me and talk to me about your career?" Now, 9 times out of 10, I'll be like, "Oh, 30 minutes is a lot of time. I'm, very busy." But I thought, what a cool thing to do. I would never have had the courage to do something like that. So I went back to him and I said, "You know what? This is my EA's contact details. Let's set up 30 minutes. And I got to tell you, I got more out of that 30 minutes and the subsequent conversations we've had since. So he ended up asking me if I would sort of officially be a mentor. And I said, "Absolutely. Like, you've just completely inspired me as a 21-year-old, soon to be university graduate with so much passion to learn and grow." And so, we still connect, on a pretty regular basis now. He's several years into his career. He's had a very rapid acceleration. I take no credit for that. That's all his. But I got to say, like, I feel like I get more. He's always so grateful. He's like, "I'm so thankful of how much time you give me." And I think, no, I'm the one who's thankful because, you continue to keep me on my toes and keep me, wanting to be fresh and across, and across things. And, that I have a bit of both at the moment, and I certainly strongly encourage it wherever it's possible. But lean in if you're unsure. I mean, he said he had 3 of the 20, and he doesn't even know that he had our email addresses right. No. But he had 3 of the 20 who responded, and maybe the others didn't even get the email. But I just thought, what a courageous thing to be willing to do. It does make me wonder, sidetrack a little bit, but as women, we know we're a little more hesitant to do things like that. But is there a gender thing in there? Why should we be? He just bit the bullet and he just did it and he didn't think twice. And he was okay to take no for an answer as well, or not even get an answer. Yeah. And so I think there's a little lesson in there for all of us, because I'm not sure I would have had the courage to do that. But you never know. He had the courage, and it's worked out for him, but it's worked for me as well, because I thoroughly enjoy our connections, and I'm still, I'm learning from him as much as he's learning from me.
Yes, yeah. It was probably a little bit easier by email than picking up the phone. When I first started, it was all phone calls. And so, yes, that was when, you do have that feel, "Oh my goodness, what are they going to do? They're going to hang up on me." And I can assure you, nobody hangs up on anybody. It would have to be a very rare case. Most people, as you said, they might be too busy or whatever, but just taking that leap of faith within yourself. Now, not giving away anything confidential. Is your mentor outside the industry? And is that that chap you're mentoring, is he outside the industry?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, and yes. Yes. They both are. So my mentor is actually someone who's been in a role like mine in a large global organization many years ago. And he's certainly not had anything, to do with this industry at all. And the same with my mentee, although, we often joke that who knows, one day he'll probably be my boss. He's very impressive. And they're not, just to close that one out, like, these are not labor intensive things. It can be very informal. Like, sometimes, there's not a structured program. In the case of my mentee, it's very ad hoc. It's not something that happens on a set day and time with forms and that works as well. That suits all of us. And other people prefer something much more structured. I just don't think there's one right way to have to do it. It's really about what you're getting out of the relationship that defines whether it's a sort of, mentor, what you're putting in and what you're getting out. But it doesn't have to be cumbersome. It doesn't have to be another task that we have to add to the list.
Add a long list. I love how it is. Well, in both situations, it's outside the industry, and because sometimes we look at mentors, and for for really good reason. You know, some people do have them within the company or within that industry, and it's that knowledge, which is fantastic. But I think going outside, you know, as a small business owner over the last 30 years, I see I myself blessed because I have a lot to do with the gaming and hospitality industry, but I also have the mystery shopping and the Chamber of Commerce and different business groups with women and global. And I get to see and speak to so many different people that I can bring in that information and then share it with the people that I coach and mentor. But I think that same is for you, you know, when you're working with that chap and then your mentor, it's they can bring in a different viewpoint sometimes, can't they? And that yes, we could try that. Because sometimes I look at, you know, industries, I think they're all so siloed. And I think if you could just talk to that industry, my goodness me, you'd fix it. It'd be this global conduit. But that's wonderful. And thank you. And I see that part of being the role, do you believe, with GGW, that this mentoring may, whether it's more formal or whether it's that informal, that connection, whether they be here or in any other part of the world, that would develop too, do you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things I'm most excited about the
Mm,
future for GGW, Michelle. Like I have this vision that one day, like I picture someone, you know, the industry here in Australia, it's very in New Zealand, it's very different to the US, just in terms of size and scope and
yes.
numbers of people and teams. And I just have a vision one day that there's going to be, you know, someone, I'll use marketing again, but just because it's always the first thing that comes to my mind. But you know, have someone who's like the sole marketing person at a venue or a group of venues, and they're going to
Mm,
be going through all of these challenges on their own. And then through GGW, they're going to get introduced to, you know, the senior vice president of marketing at MGM, who's got a team
yes.
of hundreds of people and access to all of these resources. And some sort of relationship is going to form, and it could really transform the life and the career of this sort of solo
Yes.
operator out at you know, a local RSL club
Mm,
or something. And that can be in any, you know, slot operator, you know, kind of
mm,
floor operator, or working behind the bar, whatever it is. And I think if we can establish some of those relationships through global gaming women,
mm,
and just it just gives access to those of us here in Australia. I mean, at the end of the day, we're still relatively small,
yes.
and if we can tap into what's available in the rest of the world,
Mm,
and frankly, we can teach them a lot too, by the way. Just
yes.
because it's bigger doesn't mean it's better.
Mm,
But I just feel like that's something that isn't going to be able to be done at a local organizational level or through an Australian version of some sort
yes.
of women's
Mm,
network group. But that's what I hope is the power of global gaming women over the years to come. And it's not, I think you mentioned before, and don't know that I quite touched on it, like who can join. It
yes.
really is very broad. So we've got some people who I've met who have come to events. Some of them have actually worked in banking, but they've specialized in you know, fraud, and you know, we know that
Okay.
there's questions around you
Mm,
know, that within our industry. I've met some women from universities who actually work in research on responsible gameplay.
right.
I've met some people who work for the big audit firms who specialize in the gaming industry. And so it doesn't just have to be someone who works for a manufacturer of, you know, slot slash poker machines, or someone who works in a, you know, in a pub or a club or a casino. But it's really about if you're connected to the gaming industry and what we
Mm,
do in some way. And so it can be quite broad, because again, that just helps us bring more diverse views
yes.
to the table, and is real evidence of when you say, like, take a career in the, you know, the gaming industry, it can take you anywhere. It really can.
Mm.
And the breadth of people we have signing up to GGW is a great example of that.
Yeah, I just love that breadth. You know, I was thinking, oh yes, there could be some clubs, there could be a consult, there'll be the manufacturers, there'll be the venues themselves or other stakeholders. But looking at auditors, and I wouldn't even have thought that. And what I think is amazing that they've felt comfortable in putting forward an application and saying, "Can I join?" Because it's growing that, you know, the community that we have even further, which is absolutely wonderful. So let's focus on that for a moment, that vision for the future as GGW grows here, you know, from little Australia and now and New Zealand, of course, and up through the Northern Hemisphere, showing them what we can do down here as well. How do you think women leaders can influence this evolution of not of continuing this revolution in our industry. It has changed a lot. As you've rightly said, Christie, we're seeing a phenomenal amount of changes coming through with, different policies and legislations here in Australia. How do you think women can be involved, or how are they involved in the evolution of not just that aspect, which is happening with gaming, but other aspects with gaming, globally?
Yeah, look, you're right. I mean, in 14 years, we've definitely seen a pretty big change in the industry. I remember going to my very first trade show, my very first AGE, G2E, and my very first ICE, and I was quite shocked at what I saw. Shocked and uncomfortable is actually probably the best way to describe it. On the one hand, in my time at Aristocrat, I'd seen these amazing female leaders who were, making big decisions about the future of the company. And then I walked around the floor of the trade show and saw, more women in bikinis standing at the front of a stand trying to attract people in than I did on the stand actually. And that hadn't been my experience at Aristocrat. And so I was quite shocked, because I was like, what have I done? Have I been living in a bubble? And so, I think, one of the things that happened in those first couple of years for me was, certainly nothing I get to take credit for, but many women, including myself, were like, hey, this isn't acceptable. And actually the men started to say, you're right, it's not acceptable, it's not necessary. And we've seen such a shift. For example, you go to a trade show now. Unfortunately, my daughter was doing her HSC, so I wasn't able to attend G2E this year, but I have been last year and many years before that. It's a completely different experience now, and global gaming women had a huge presence at the trade show in a completely professional capacity, and gone was the sideshow that was really just completely unnecessary and not a true reflection of the capability that exists in the industry. So I think by coming together and by calling out what is and what isn't acceptable, and having the confidence to demand change where change needs to be had, knowing that this industry can't grow and can't be successful without women in it. That's a full stop. Like you put a full stop on that. And I challenge anyone, male or female, to disprove that, to disprove that belief that I have. And so as a result, we should feel confident to drive and demand the types of change that we know needs to happen in the industry. We're a big part of the consumer base of the industry, and we're a huge part of the required workforce. And so I think the more we can come together and be clear about what the industry should and shouldn't do to ensure that we can not just promote. I mean, GGW is very much about promoting the advancement of women already in the industry, but we've also got to be thinking about how we can get more women in the industry to begin with. And, GGW and organizations, they certainly play a role with that just by having more women present. But actually, how do we then share those stories? How do we get the industry brand and reputation to look and feel far more attractive to the next, kind of Christie from 15 years ago, who's weighing up, do I look at a job like this or a job like that? So there's lots more change to come, and I'm confident it will be led by a huge contingent of senior female leaders in the industry from all parts of the world.
Yes. And what an exciting time and future that we have ahead of us. And you're right. I think my first G2E must have been maybe 17 years ago. I know it was a long time ago. And it was very much like what you were saying in Las Vegas. I thought, wow. But I've been to Las Vegas quite a few times, and I thought to myself, well, is this just the norm? And then we sort of try to see it replicated out here, thinking, no. And it is different now. It's being respectful of everybody that is there and not making anybody feel uncomfortable, whether they are, no matter what gender they are. So, yes, I think the future is bright, and it's also, it's that encouraging more people to come into the industry, and particularly for women, and then to step up into those leadership roles, because I know that's what I see from perspective of training frontline team members and then coaching them through to CEOs. There's that still that massive gap in that middle management that are predominantly male, although I will say there are more females than when I started nearly 30 years ago, and moving into that role. But we need them to apply. That's probably the biggest thing, is that they don't apply. When we are developing them from within, then they've got that tap on the shoulder and that encouragement, that mentoring process you were talking about before, Christie. But yeah, it's just getting them to apply. So if they can get that confidence through meeting others through GGW, would be absolutely wonderful and so important. Let's just tweak for a moment to work-life balance. Here you are, you've got a group of employees, 9,000 globally. You've, on a number of other different boards, you've got your own team there, in your direct office. As you've said, your daughter's just finished her HSC. So, people sort of think, oh, yes, they're leaving. No, they're not leaving the coop. That's just university starts, and it's more and more years. But how do you manage this balance, Christie? Because, and I think that's the thing, and I'm not being stereotype here. So many people feel sometimes there has to be that either or choice, or they either have to stay at home and be a mother, or they can be a career woman. We can be both, but I think it's understanding that we choose where we want to be on that journey. And I think it's understanding we have different seasons in our life. When I started my business, I've had all my young children through setting up my businesses, and brand new babies, and ringing clients, and I just came out of having a cesarean within 8 hours, ringing them up, going, and talking to me and going, what's wrong with you? And I'm going, oh, I just come out of having a cesarean, get off the phone. And I think we try to do everything. And I know when I talk to women these days, I say, there'll be seasons. There'll be times when your little ones are at school and you want to do all those things. Then there'll be times where, they grow up and you can get more into your career. But it's understanding, it's hopefully them being able to have the choice. That's probably the biggest thing. So how do you manage your life around family and all the work commitments that you have? And also being a global company, it's probably sometimes like a 24-hour clock with you too, is it?
Yes, one of my favorite questions. I feel like I should bring my wife in here, Michelle, and let her answer that question, because I'm pretty sure her answer is going to be different to mine. Hoping she doesn't listen to this podcast, because she might call rubbish on this. But look, a couple of things. I think firstly, what work-life balance looks like for me is going to be very different to what that needs to look like for you. So coming to a point of acceptance that there are no two versions of work-life balance that look the same, I think is an important thing. So, for my role at Aristocrat, absolutely. I mean, the regular day, particularly Tuesday through Saturday, because, Australia comes online first, Tuesday through Saturday, they start at 5 or 6 a.m. And days finish, between 10 and 11 p.m. And that's a regular day. And then, of course, when you've got crises or things going on, it's the middle of the night, because, that's just how the world, no one's found a way to solve for world clock yet.
Nope.
But there's a couple of ways, I can think about that. I can be chained to my desk from 5 a.m. till 11. Or I can work out how to structure my day around the fact that I do work in a global company. There are times of the day where US is going offline, UK haven't quite come online. Oh, it's a little bit quiet. Then that's a great time for me to get out and go for a walk. Or that's a great time for me to, it's around lunchtime to go and sit and have a bite to eat with my wife, so we can, have a chat over lunch, rather than eating something sitting here at my desk. So, finding what works for you within the kind of parameters that you have, I think, the biggest defining moment of my career, in terms of being offered a role, happened when I was in the middle of a separation and about to become a single mum. And I was working at Aristocrat at the time, and I got offered a job as the chief of staff to our CEO. And the job sounded amazing, but I had the most overwhelming things going on in my personal life that I couldn't imagine calling up the CEO to say, sorry, I'm a single mum and my daughter's got a runny nose today, I can't come in. So I turned the job down at first, and I said, look, I'm so flattered. You have no idea how flattered I am. But it's a job out of HR, which is not my area of expertise. So I'd have to be on this steep learning curve. I'm on another steep learning curve because I'm about to become a single mum.
Yes.
My time constraints are about to be changed pretty dramatically. The level of flexibility that I have to say, don't worry, someone else will get to after school care. And so I turned it down, and fortunately the CEO and the CFO at the time said, this doesn't sound right. Like, we understand that's life.
Yes.
But we will give you the support and the flexibility you need, and we will make this happen. And in a moment of, I don't know if it was peer pressure or just Christie craziness, I went, you know what, I'm just going to do it.
Yes. Yeah.
And on paper, this makes no sense because I'll lose control, and I'm all about control. That's another podcast. But I thought, I'm just going to do it. And I did it. And it really was a significant turning point for me from a career perspective, Michelle. And I'm just so pleased I did. So I don't know if I answered the question of how I found work-life balance, but hopefully just shared a couple of stories that resonate with people, because we're all in the same boat. At that time, my daughter was 4. She's just turned 18. She knows nothing but life at Aristocrat. I think she knows more about some of the people at Aristocrat than I do. And it's just, you just find ways to make it work. Find something that you're really passionate about. And for me, it's been different things over the time. Right now I'm into running and CrossFit, and so I prioritize those the same way I prioritize other work meetings. And is it perfect? No. If my wife was sitting here listening to this, would she be telling you I don't have good balance? Probably. But it's also a season, to your point.
It is.
I think there's periods where you can do this, and other times where you want your version of work-life balance to look a little bit different.
Yes.
And there's no kind of one answer that's going to sustain your whole career, I don't think.
No, but it's having those people, like, you were saying the CEO and the CFO said, we're here to support you. And it's not just words, it's actual doing. And I think, I think that's been probably one of the biggest, greatest shifts where, you could have perhaps just said no and not given them any further details. But when they found out, it's like, okay, well, how can we work with this? And sometimes, Christie, do you feel it's actually verbalizing it, having that confidence to say, yes, I'm a single mum, or I've got aging parents and I need to care for them, or, just being open. And so then people go, okay, so now we know that's what we have to work with. So where can we bring in that flexibility? And it's that comes down to that communication piece again. So often I see two sides and I think, oh my gosh, if you just talked, if you just shared, it would make so much difference, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I have a super quick story if we have time, and you can cut it out if we don't. But this was at Aristocrat that we had a male leader who had this amazing female on his team that he saw as having tremendous potential. And so he kept trying to create opportunities for her to do global trips because he wanted to give her that access and that exposure. So there was a trip planned to India, there was one to Las Vegas, and he thought he was just doing a great thing to give her the exposure, the network, the access. And the trips kept getting cancelled for a variety of different reasons. And what we later learned was because of her at-home responsibilities, the idea of one of those trips for her was terrifying.
Right.
Now, she didn't say that to him, and he didn't say to her why he was trying to make it happen. And she didn't say why she kept saying, oh, I can't make that work. And they were both feeling like, I'm trying to keep doing this, and she's not like really wanting to lean into it, and maybe she's not as interested in kind of being here. And she keeps thinking, why does he keep putting this pressure on me? Like this is really awkward, and I've got a lot of family things to deal with. And somehow, and I don't even remember how, to be honest, but somehow in a conversation between the two of them, it came out, and they both talked to me about how it was like just this huge moment of relief for both of them. And then he was saying, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I was absolutely not trying to put any pressure on you.
Yes.
I was trying to create these opportunities for you because I think you're so amazing. And she's thinking, I thought I was going to lose my job because I kept saying no to these trips. And so just saying it, I think, in being honest, because we're all in similar situations. Now, I know I feel very lucky, and I know people's experience has not always been the same as mine. You haven't had that level of support, or I haven't had a boss like that example I just gave who went, oh my God, I had no idea. But that's kind of for me why I'm so passionate about GGW, because I think I know there are people who have not been as fortunate as me. And so therefore I feel like I have a responsibility to help those people, to try to kind of fill the void where perhaps other leaders are not. And so for that's kind of what drives me to get involved, because there's no point pretending everybody's had these amazing cruisy experiences and all bosses are going to lean in and be supportive, and that just isn't the case. And I've been, as I said, I've been super fortunate, hence why if I can help somebody else, even just by telling the story or something more tangible, I really want to do it.
Yeah, which is wonderful, because it's for everyone, no matter where they are on the journey, whether they're aspiring leaders or whether they are already senior leaders or whether they're just starting off, and this is going to be the community. So how can they get in contact with you, Christie? I'll put links certainly in the show notes. How can they actually join and learn a little bit more about GGW?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not very active. I've got to admit, I'm one of those people who's not very good at my own social media management. But you can certainly get in touch with me through LinkedIn. In terms of GGW, check out the GGW website. You can then, on the GGW website, you can actually register to become a member. It's completely free. So sometimes people get panicked when they say, oh, I've got to become a member, how much it's going to cost. It's completely free. It's like kind of going to the shop and giving them your name and your email address kind of thing. Although I promise we won't spam you with as many emails as happens when you sign up in the in-store shop. But by signing up to those emails, and in particular if you put in your location, it's optional, you don't have to, but if you do, it does mean we can make sure you get the tailored messages. So there's no point telling you about a conference that's happening in person in Louisiana. But we might tell you about a webinar that's being run out of the US, but it's in a global time zone and anybody can dial in. Also means we can tell you about events that are happening in your local area, and just make sure you're in the know, directly about activities that are happening. So free to join, do it from the Global Gaming Women website. We'll be in touch as and when events arise. And then if you're at an event and you see me, come and say hello. I'd love to hear from any of your listeners who joined off the back of hearing about GGW on your podcast, Michelle.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. So it's globalgamingwomen.com.au.
That's a great question. I probably should have checked that. I'm not sure. Let me look that up while we keep talking, and we can give it a
just so
for
those that are listening and may not read the show notes, and I should have looked it up too, because I know I get emails from you every so. And you're right. Look, you don't spam. I used to get them all from America, and now I'm thinking, oh yes, this is from Australia, because then it'll be the meetups, as you said, here in Australia.
Yeah, once you put your location in, and it's globalgamingwomen.org.
Well, we were totally both off the mark.
I should know that off the top of my head, but I didn't. But globalgamingwomen.org, which makes sense. It's a registered charity, not a commercial organisation. So hence the .org rather than .com.au.
Perfect. I really thank you so much, Christie, for joining me this afternoon, sharing your own personal journey and story, being the mentor, having the mentee, how you got into this industry, and then having that global connection with over 9,000 team members that that look to you for advice, but also look to you to have those discussions. Well, where is my next step? And connecting with other women in global gaming women is certainly one of those steps that my listeners can take if they are in the gaming and hospitality industry, and I know you'd love to welcome them. Is there anything else about your journey in becoming a woman leader that I didn't ask that I perhaps should have, that you'd like to share with my listeners?
I would just say, and maybe it goes to my last little story about when I was offered the chief of staff role, but like take the leap, even when it seems a little bit crazy. Take the leap anyway. Many years ago, I was in human resources. I was early in my career, and I was actually offered a job to be involved in the startup of Jetstar. And I moved down to Melbourne with 5 people. It seemed crazy at the time. I was working within the airline industry. And then while I was there, they said, how do you feel? And I was working in human resources. I'd never managed people, like a junior graduate perhaps. And they said, how would you feel about becoming one of our regional base managers? And I was like, well, what's that? And they said, well, you'd be in the Melbourne base and you'd be responsible for 150 cabin crew and 100 pilots. They'd all report to you. And I was like, I've never managed people. I've never been a pilot. I've never been a flight attendant. I mean, I've jumped on a couple of planes here and there, but how could I possibly do that?
Yeah.
And I remember at the time, the manager who was hiring, he said, yeah, but they're just people, Christie. And what you know is people. So you don't need to teach them how to do their job. They know how to do their job. They get training. That, you know, pilot's not looking to you to tell him which button to press. There's a whole program that's designed to do that. But they actually just need someone to be available at the base for them to deal with issues that people have when it comes to their work, their life, their career, other, you know, relationships with other people at work. I thought, this sounds crazy, but I'm going to give it a go. And I got to tell you, it was one of the best experiences of my life. And so when I think about some of the funnest things I've done in my career, it's been when I've taken a leap that seemed absolutely crazy on paper. And probably everybody else thought it was a bit crazy too. They're thinking, who's this young kid they're sending out to tell 100 pilots, you know, what to do. But they were some of the transformative moments of my career that just gave me the confidence. Like, if I can do that, of course I can do this.
Yes.
That would be my only other lesson, is take the leap, no matter how crazy it seems when the opportunities present itself, because you'll probably only ever regret not taking it. And even if it turns out to be not the thing for you, hey, you've learned something in that anyway. And so it's an experience. You can tick it off the list, no regrets. So that's probably it, Michelle.
It's been wonderful sharing this time with you, Christie. Once again, I know my listeners will love hearing, you know, not just about GGW, but about your journey and just those little points you've made about, you know, don't knock back opportunities. Just try it and go for it. And you just don't know what's going to happen on the other side, do you?
Absolutely not.
No, you don't. All right. Thank you so much, Christie. It's been wonderful having you on the podcast today.
Thanks, Michelle. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining me on this week's podcast. I do hope there was some moments of aha, insights, tips, and some action steps for you to take in your business or organization. I love being in this industry. So the more that you can get the word out about this podcast, because it really is an honor and a privilege to have so many amazing guests on the podcast, that we need to get the word out there. So please share. A review would be wonderful. And if you'd like to reach out and learn more about what I do and my signature program for the leadership development middle management movement, please have a look at the website, www.michellepascoe.com. Take care, everyone. Bye.